Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we're going to tell you how to save money by skipping on these expensive cards that we think aren't worth it. Join with me is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm doing super well. Nothing I like more than some budget magic substitution, so this should be good.
Speaking of budget magic, Budget Commander Tomer, what's up?
Yo, I love these type of topics because I'm sure it's going to get the most angriest people in the comment section as we say their favorite favorite card's not worth it. I always love to fight with the people who are watching. It's great.
The Asian Avenger, always in fight mode. Krim, what's up?
I am. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's good. I'm excited to talk about some of these cards that I think are worth not buying.
All right. Today's show is brought to you by Ultimate Guard, premium protection for your trading cards. So all the gaming accessories that we use on this channel are brought to you by Ultimate Guard. And then also Card Conduit, in case you want to sell your cards. You can skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. And the curated service lets you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 more, and you pay just a 5% service fee. You can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment. Once your order is processed, you can get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. So thank you to our sponsors. And it's time for the Ultimate Guard comment of the week. Last week, we tried to fit cards into the new bracket system that Wizards is releasing. Top comment, Lazy Dino 59. Richard didn't need to be on this episode. His response to every card would be bracket 1, it dies to farewell. Or it's completely overpowered, bracket 800. And no between.
Richard's legacy continues. We'll never have a top comment of the week that isn't about Richard.
Be there for
Still got it. Still got it.
That's some good engagement.
I'm consistent, you know? You can just predict what I'm going to say. This is consistency, right? All right. So let's jump into the topic. Expensive cards you can skip to save money. Now, we did a similar episode roughly a year ago. I'm going to briefly recap that the cards we chose in there, and then we'll first start off by saying if you think anything has changed, roughly, like maybe 1-2 sentences, and then we'll get into our list of cards today. So we said original dual lands, Imperial Seal, Doubling Season, Esper Sentinel, Cyclonic Rift, Jeweled Lotus. Oh, Jeweled Lotus not in the format anymore. Damnation.
We're technically
Force
right
of Negation, Sylvan Library, Wheel of Fortune, Timeless Lotus, and Ancient Copper Dragon. Those were the cards. Anything change aside from the fact that if you listened to us, you could have saved on Jeweled Lotus, but
Now it seems pretty accurate still. I think all those cards, well, I mean, I don't know if I agreed with all of them at the time, like Esper Sentinel and stuff, but I think in general, it's a pretty reasonable list.
Yeah, I think my opinion on these cards hasn't changed. I remember we were disagreeing on some of these cards before. Like I think Psych Rift is still worth it, but
Yeah,
I don't think Ancient Copper Dragon is worth it now. It's like even more expensive.
It's like 70
some dollars.
Yeah, it's gone up.
Yeah,
a lot
like
of these
Force of Negation, still not really worth it. Esper Sentinel, not really worth it to me, but word.
Yeah, and I think that the important one is original dual lands. I think we all agreed back then, and we still agree that having a dual land over a shock land is a very marginal improvement to your deck and not worth it, dollar per value ratio, right? But if you have them, I guess you might as well just chuck them in your deck, right? Like, Okay, let's get on today's topic. So today's topic was actually inspired by a conversation I had with Seth. So currently, there's a secret lair going on, Extra Life secret lair, that has Fierce Guardianship in it. Now, I was talking to Seth, and I'm like, I don't know if I should buy this. I don't play Fierce Guardianship that much. Should I buy it? Because essentially, it's $40 for the secret lair drop. The only card of value. Fierce Guardianship is a $40 card, right? And then on top of that, there's a delayed Fireball Blast, but that's very specific. So the whole value of the secret lair is tied up there. So I was talking to Seth, and then Seth says, yeah, I don't play it either because I think it makes my decks too powerful, so I just cut it. And I was like, interesting, because I don't play it because I think it sucks. Now, that was the morning, and then that very afternoon, the foil secret lair sold out, and I had it in my cart, and it was $50 for the foil version plus $10 shipping plus tax, and I'm like, should I buy this? I ended up not doing it, and it sold out.
It's sold
Wait,
out.
So it's sold out for immediate shipment, right? So it's on back order.
Okay.
Right? So if you ordered it immediately, you could have got it in 2 days. Now you'll get it in December or something. And why? It is a $40 card, and I think Pact of Negation is way better. Now, Pact of Negation is the 0 mana counterspell, but you have to pay 5 during your upkeep, or you die, you lose the game. And here's my reasoning. So I actually don't play Fierce Guardianship that much. And it's because your commander needs to be on the battlefield. And a lot of times your commander is not on the battlefield. Like, commanders are so powerful nowadays, you can't just slap it down and expect everyone to let it live the next turn cycle. Like, everyone's gunning for it, right? So having to keep your commander on the battlefield to use your free counter is rough, right? And then it also turns removal into counter spells. Right? Like, it's easy to play around Fierce Guardianship. You see the commander there, you're like, well, first, let me use my Doomblade to force the counterspell out, right? Because if I Doomblade this and he's tapped out, there's no more chance of a counterspell, right? So I actually like Pact of Negation better. And I personally don't believe Fierce is worth $40, even the Pixel Civil Theft.
I bet.
Plus $10 shipping, plus tax.
I don't even know how to respond to that. Like
Pact of Negation. So, like, you don't counter, okay, unless you play a Crim deck where you play like 30 counter spells, you don't counter spell until you're about to win the game, right? Therefore, the next upkeep don't even matter. Right? Like, the 5 mana on the next upkeep doesn't matter, right?
Okay, but in this format, I would say like 90%, maybe even higher, decks are like heavily reliant on having the commander on the battlefield. Like, that's like the main value engine of most decks, or most decks are built around that. And if it's not around, then the deck is much, much worse. So keeping the commander is like the top priority, right? And the best card to do that, like, okay, you tapped out, you played your commander. Well, what if there was this like free counter spell that came with like no other restrictions and literally is there to protect your main game piece to win the game afterwards? Like, Pact of Negation's not that, because you basically, Pact of Negation is the card you want to have if you're gonna win the game. Like, if you won the game and you don't care about the next turn, fine. But Fierce is the thing that like gets your engine to stick, and it's like it's gonna be the difference between your deck doing its thing to get to win, like eventually, or like just not doing anything because your commander immediately got wiped, and then you're like you take an extra turn off basically, or whatever. It's like sad.
Richard, you know how we like everybody memes about us having terrible threat assessment, right? Like,
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that here. If you play your commander, I promise you this, Richard, 99.9% of the times, Richard, you play really weird commanders that are not a threat. So I promise you this too. Like, I am not going for your commander. On top of that, there are 3 other commanders. So I think you're in this world where you assume that the table's gonna be like, oh, that's Richard's commander, gotta kill him. But I also, like, your opponents will have their commander out, so that means 2 other players will care about maybe that commander. Your commander may be low on the priority list, so that allows you to fly under the radar. Fierce Guardianship allows you to now sit there, and if somebody else is like taking all the aggro for their commander or whatever they're doing, you're able to now tap out, play your commander for free, hold up, like, and slide under the radar and be comfortably in
under
second
the radar.
place.
I don't even need the Fierce Guardianship, right? If I play some garbage commander, who's gonna remove it? I don't even need to hold.
But
the
that's
Fierce Guardianship
exactly
in
it.
hand,
Now,
right?
no one's gonna interact with you, and when you actually try to do the thing, your commander will be there, like Tomer had mentioned. You can now actually set up your engine to take over the game and win, and it is so nice to be able to just have that free counter. And plus, like, if you are playing a Crim deck, it feels so good to know that I essentially could have 2 to 3 counter spells, even though I'm only like representing like, 2 open mana. So, you just, Pact of Negation is actually, believe it or not, hear me out, all right, Rich, I'm going to say it. It's a tempo loss. Tempo. That's right.
Oh, God. It's
I like
reverse tempo loss. You're
I like that, but
actually
that's-
throwing away mana in the future and paying a giant tax. That is a tempo gain, right?
Pact
It
wins
is-
you the
I
game,
think it
but
is
like
kind of a
Fierce
tempo
gets you
game.
to win the game in a
I
winning
know.
position.
So
A pact of negation, yes. In a winning position, sure. But like, if I am trying to get set up,
Yeah,
I am falling short.
that's
Very
what I mean.
short.
Pact is to win, is if you're going to go for the win, and Fierce is to get you into the position where you can win the game. Because early game, you need to have your value engine online. Chances are that's going to be the commander. Like, I'm looking at most of my lists. It's like, would I prefer the Fierce or the Pact? And it's like, I think maybe Zedru is like the only deck that I would be like, yeah, I want the Pact because I have a silly like 5-card jank combo that I don't have the mana to protect. And it doesn't really matter if Zedru's there or not. So
I actually kind of agree with Richard, but for a very different reason. Like, back to our original conversation, I do think that it's not worth spending $40 on Fierce Guardianship, but I think that's because it's just like a card that I don't want in most of my decks because I don't like how it plays. I feel like the free counter spell, especially when you have a ton of those, it just leads to these anticlimactic moments that aren't very exciting. And I think the game is more fun when those aren't involved. So I wouldn't buy it to put in my decks simply because I don't really want to play that card in my decks because I think the games play out better without that. And I will say Pact has looked pretty good when Richard has played. I was like a 2 out of 10 on Pact of Negation, but we've seen it on Commander Clash a few times, and I still don't put it in my decks, but it is better than I thought it would be. So as far as a replacement, it seems reasonable enough if you really want a free counter.
sorry, I have to
You know
I have to
what?
open the door really quick. He doesn't have a key. 1 second.
Oh my
Sorry.
god, he still doesn't have a key. Why?
How do you not
Are
have
they
a key?
even dating? Are they even dating?
What if Tomer is not
They-
home? How does he get it? Like,
Yeah.
how?
They both live there, right? How is that even possible?
Like, how is
It
this
is
possible?
so funny to me still that it's like Tomer's like, I gotta let my boyfriend in. Just build. Okay,
Sorry, I'm back.
Tomer, you gotta build Rodrigo a boyfriend door
Here we
like
go.
a dog.
I know you don't
door.
have key cutting services in Europe, Tomer.
No.
When we're in Vegas, we'll go cut an extra key.
No,
Don't
no.
do it here.
For like a dollar, yeah.
We have 2 keys, but one of Rodrigo's friends is staying over, and so because he's visiting Paris by himself, he has the extra keys.
Okay.
What about
Okay,
a third
okay.
Always-
key? A backup?
Rule of thumb is number of people in household +1 for key.
Yo, that's
No, it's like basic lands -1. Tomer's not right.
Oh,
yo, that
All
could
right.
be expensive. Come on.
All
Let's
right.
eat that
I will
VG.
say this. Everything you say sounds good in theory, but just look at our Clash games and how long your commander sticks on the battlefield. Like, the person that runs it out usually gets it killed pretty quickly because usually that means your deck is about to do scary things and it gets wrapped, it gets removed. So I don't know, man. Like, my commander's not on the battlefield at all, and when it is, it's because it sucks, like Krim says. Therefore, I don't even need to protect it. But I've
you're
had
not
a lot
worried
of
about
games where I'm like,
protecting
I don't have a commander out. Like, I cannot stick my commander. I'm not gonna because if I play it too early and it dies, it's +2 mana on it, right? And then take the best card in the world, add 2 mana on it. It's a trash card, right? So you cannot afford to have your commander die before you're set up. So, you know, if you want to go all aggro, tempo everyone out, on curve, play your commander, try to Fierce Guardianship, and then like try to keep protecting it, that works. But I prefer the let everyone blow their resources, now play your commander, have 2 counter spells, right? Like an actual mana counter spell and a free counter spell, untap, win the game, right?
never
like,
wanna-
essentially,
But if
that's what you want
need
to try to do, right?
I agree with that. Like, that's a good way to make sure the commander sticks around, because then, yeah, if you're slow rolling your commander, that means other people are probably taking the heat, and that's like a good way to just like make sure people have less removal to deal with you. But at the same time, then if you still need your commander to stick, if you slow rolled and stuff, wouldn't you want a Fierce to keep your commander to deal with that one last removal that somebody has over a Pact? Because like Pact, like, it's always going to take your next turn's mana. If your goal is
If
just to
there
stick
is
your
a next
commander.
turn.
If there is a
I mean,
if you just win the game.
It also depends on your play group too, right?
Yeah.
Like, our play group knows to play around Fierce. You know,
Yeah.
Phil just phased out my commander to remove free spells, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, right? Like, we know how to play around it as well. So I guess there are play groups where you don't play around it, and you're like, oh, well, sure, you're tapped out, right? But it depends on how while your commander stick. Like if you're a Voltron commander, yeah, play Fierce Guardianship, right? Like the whole point of your deck is to stick your commander and load it up. But in general, I find it really hard to stick my commander. And especially in our play group, anyone get their commander for 2-3 turns, the game is probably over.
Yeah.
Right? Like no matter how you built your deck, like you probably were able to do your thing. So yeah. So consider Pact of Negation, okay? Consider it. Don't think it's an auto include that Fierce is better, right? Like consider other cards.
It is.
The Flare can also be better, right? If you're a go wide blue deck, the blue Flare could be it's much easier to sack a Journal non-token creature, depending on your deck, right? So consider the other free counter spells.
Richard, the one thing here is even that. Okay. One last thing is just like, okay, the group, when Seth and all y'all try to kill my stuff when I have my commander out, tell me this, even if you know that you're playing around Fierce Guardianship, how much more annoying is it to know that, okay, I have a Fierce? It doesn't matter if you play around it. You know I've got to do it. So it's the same as, what's that one enchantment that Phil loves playing where where it counters the first spell?
Oh, Lunar Force,
and
yeah.
Yes, Lunar Force. Just watching the table figure out how to get around a Lunar Force and who's the one that wants to essentially spend their turn, that alone is funny. Now, on top of that, you have to combine the fact that how many people might even have a single spot removal spell. More often than not, they don't. They'll have like a board wipe, a full board wipe, something like that, sure. But even if someone is representing a Fierce Guardianship, the amount of the card, I guess the cards that the table will have to use to deal with your commander is worth it alone. I think that's great. And it sets up for the next time you play your commander. If you have a cheap commander, oh baby, you are so cooking.
I mean, it gets better with cheap command. But remember, that command tax is now applying to your Fierce. Right? If you're holding a Fierce in hand, your commander has died twice. You're like, this Fierce Guardianship is like not a free counter anymore. I'm kind of priced into playing my commander too, right? Like
no, because then you'd have the 3 mana to just cast it.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah, but I mean, no one's phoning home about a 3 mana counter spell at this point, right?
You know,
okay, I got Fierce Guardianship. I'm not trolling by it. I know a lot of people be like, oh, Richard's just trolling. Like, just look at all my deck lists, right? Like, I thought really hard because I like pixel art. Fibblethip Fierce. I'm like, I just don't play this card anymore. But you know what's all frayed because I didn't double sleeve it? My Pact of Negation, baby. That one. I'm gonna get the Future Sight one. All right, Seth, hit us with the card.
All right, I got a super easy one. This card's it's a good card. It's a good card. It's just way too expensive for the amount of play that it gets. And that's the Meathook Massacre. So Meathook Massacre, it's a double black and X. When it enters, each creature gets negative X until undeterred. When a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life, and a creature your opponent controls dies, you gain a life. And it's a massive $52. It's actually ticking up slowly in price. Not that long ago, it was like in the 30s and then 40s, and now it's up over 50. So Meathook Massacre, if you're playing a sack deck, really good card, right? If you're built around it. But I have found, and I'm curious how you guys play it, I don't really play this as a Wrath in just a generic black deck. I think it's a little bit too expensive. And if I want an expensive Wrath, I can play like a Decree of Pain for a couple of bucks and draw a ton of cards. I can play the one that makes treasures if I want to for a few bucks and draw a ton of cards. Toxic Deluge just got reprinted. That card's down to like $5 or $4 now. Even Damnation just got reprinted. It's down to $20 now. So for me, if I'm playing like Corvold sack deck, yes, if that's like my go-to deck that I'm going to play the most, maybe it's worth me splurging on a $50 Meathook Massacre specifically to make that deck as good as it can be. But if I'm just building a commander collection, I think there's enough other Wraths that I would rather buy a Toxic Deluge, a Decree of Pain, a Damnation, whatever, like 5 other Wraths and have my full collection than own one Meathook Massacre that I'm not even going to play in most of my decks.
I'm on board with it. I love Meathook Massacre.
Oh, it's very good.
And I think it's a really good card. But like $52 is yowzes to me. Like I feel like Black's not hurting for like pretty good board wipes. And like you said, like Toxic Deluge is like less than $8. Like that's I'll take the Toxic Deluge. Okay, I'll do that. Like maybe it's not as good as synergistic in certain black decks, but like it's cheaper to get the job done. It fits in very much similar decks, and $52 for a board wipe. Maybe if it was like the only good board wipe in black, but like black has some good board wipes, so it's like, yeah, it's really good, but $52 is good. No.
I mean, I play this card a lot. This card, I think you are not understanding how, if you don't see why it's worth $52, then you haven't lived. Because, my God, the amount of board wipes I play, plus how many times I'm getting hit, I need to gain that life. I think just passively, the life gain is so big. This just sits there. It's an enchantment that also is weird, where it is a board wipe, but you can just play it as a life gain mechanic, and just this kind of enchantment that'll just keep you in the game. It's very subtle in that it sits there and they're just gaining one. They're just gaining one. That adds up. And I know y'all talk about incremental life gain just across cards in this format. This does that. And it does that with like everything in black. Actually, I don't even have to play removal for this to be good, right? Just naturally through a game, creatures die. I think this card is worth every penny. But like, if you have to kill an 8/8 or something, like if you have like a go tall deck, like this is not like spending 10 mana to kill an 8/8 is just not good for a board wipe, right? Like it does have its downsides.
Yeah, it does have downsides.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
Just like if you have a board wipe versus an indestructible creature, you're sad-faced, right?
Sure,
but this
but
one
like,
gets around indestructible.
We're comparing
right?
Toxic Deluge. Toxic Deluge is $8, like, and Toxic Deluge can get around indestructible and do the same thing, except it's like 3 mana, get rid of the 8/8s,
Okay, Richard.
Like,
if you're killing 6/6s, Toxic Deluge is -6. Meatball could be -6 life. Meatball could be like +20. Right? So
if you're gonna spend 8 mana, though, aren't you gonna Decree a Pain? Are you really gonna spend 8 mana to like gain a couple life when you can Decree a Pain and draw a new hand? Isn't that just so much better if you want a super expensive Wrath?
If this card was $30, I think this would be a no-brainer. Like, I'm on board with Krim. When this card was first spoiled, I poo-pooed it. You guys sat there and tried to convince me, probably Krim, tried to convince me why this was good. And I'm like, why would you pay 10 mana to wrap the board? Like, it didn't make any sense. But this is actually the #1 board wipe I put in all decks.
Really?
Supported. The life gain. The life gain is just worth it, right? It's like wrap the board, gain 10, right? That's like take an extra turn, right? Like, in my opinion, like gaining that life gives you like another turn to live, right? So I actually really like it. 50 is a hard ask though. Like 50 for any one card is tough.
You gotta really like it.
But if a card is worth it, this is kind of getting there, because there are no other cards that gain you life like the other big life gain would be like Whip of Erebos or something, right? Or maybe Sangromancer, stuff like that. But this is a Wrath, and everyone needs a Wrath. So it gives you the Wrath and the life gain in one card. So I really like it, but I don't know that you should buy it because they're probably going to reprint it eventually. Right? They're going to reprint it soon, right?
I mean,
it's such a staple card.
Who knows?
And that's the other thing too, right? It's never really been reprinted. It's a mythic, so that's part of why it's so expensive. Once it shows up as like a rare in a master set or something, it's probably going to go back down to $20 or whatever. So even if you really want it, just wait till it's reprinted and then snag it, Richard. That's the way to do it.
So if it was Secret Lair, Meathook Massacre, and Mana Geyser, I would have bought it. If it was Meatball over Fierce, I would have bought that Secret Lair.
They could have done Secret Lair, Meathook Massacre 1 and #2, and that could have been Secret Lair or something for Duskmoor, and that could have been fun.
Yeah.
All right, Krim, hit us with a card.
Okay. This is gonna seem weird because it's been around since forever, but even though it's been around forever, it's still kind of like pushing a price tag that I don't like. And I think I'm gonna just drop Demonic Tutor. I don't think Demonic Tutor's worth the price, but it's more so I think it might be a philosophy thing more than anything else. I mean, it is expensive for what it is. I think it is $30, $40 to essentially be the second copy of any card in your deck. As you know, I don't like tutoring. I think that tutors are also kind of just a miserable part of what is a singleton format. So I don't think it's worth it, mostly just because of on principle of what I don't like of how it plays. On top of that, if you really are trying to get that mana positive, like, okay, double play turn, get whatever, and kind of win the game, I don't know. Isn't that kind of too sweaty? That's a little too sweaty, right? That's a little too sweaty.
Wait a minute.
There's also cheaper tutors along that with like Dark Petition. There's, even you can even go Diabolic, right? I don't know. I just think that this isn't that worth it to me, only because I just don't like tutors, and it's still kind of expensive, and it doesn't do anything cool to me. It's like, all right, I get whatever, just whatever.
So
That's kind of generic.
if your opinion is just I don't like tutors at all, perfectly fair, and then I would agree, because I don't really like tutors that much either. But I would say this is the tutor that's most worth it, in my opinion. Like, if I'm going to buy a tutor and spend money, this is the one I'm going to buy. When you consider, like, Imperial Seals, like $90, Vampiric Tutors, like $40, even the bad ones, like Grim Tutor, like $20, getting a Demonic Tutor for, like, 35-ish bucks, somewhere in that range, to me, that seems like, if I am going to play a tutor, that's what I would put my $35 towards, rather than any of the other options.
You could even get Dark Petition like promo.
Dark Petition,
right? Like for $7.
I feel like Dark Petition
is just
it's
bad.
The
close,
problem with
but
Dark
not in the same
Petition
age.
is watch Richard play a game of Commander. It's turn 2. He's missing his land drop. You know he's going to fire off the
Exactly.
Demonic Tutor to get his Ancient Tomb or his Cabal Coffers. You can't do that with Dark Petition. Even though in the late game and you're comboing, it's just as good, but like it loses that use case, I think.
Being 2 mana is so clutch, because just like you said, I was going to bring it up. Like, if you have an opening hand that's looking a little bit sketchy, you have 2 lands, but you really need a third land to really start going. Well, keep that hand if it has Demonic Tutor in it, right? Because you get 2 turns that you can see what's going on. If you have no turn 2 play, you could just, fire it off, get that land. Turn 3 rolls around and you still don't have the third land, Demonic Tutor, find the land. If you don't need that land, you can get whatever the heck else. You get your Sol Ring, you can get whatever. You could get your Urborg if you have a Cabal Coffers. You have Cabal Coffers, you can get the Urborg. It's also basically makes silver bullets much more appealing in Commander. Like, let's say I have like 1 Graveyard Hate piece in my deck, the 1 Scavenger Ground, the 1 Soul Guy Lantern or whatever. That's not very consistent to have it when I need it. But if I have a Demonic Tutor there, now I have a second one, and now my silver bullets are actually much more reliable and justify putting them in a little bit more. And then, if you don't need your silver bullet, you find your combo piece or whatever too. Yeah, I get philosophically. Like, it goes like, obviously it was 100 card singleton for a reason. Like, there's a reason why they chose that, and they wanted to make it more higher variance, and tutors go against variance. But I think it's worth $36. It's just so good. Most tutors I won't run because they're just bad. Like, if it's 3 mana or more, I'm not running a Diabolic Tutor, even if my deck could benefit from it. It's just 2 mana inefficient. But like, you go turn 2 Demonic Tutor, find a land or whatever you need. It's so good.
The alternative, the actual like non-cope alternative is Vampiric Tutor, right?
Yeah.
But even that's kind of cope, because you go down a card because it puts the card on top. You don't get it immediately, but that's more expensive than Demonic Tutor.
Yeah.
I will say I have tried cutting Demonic Tutor out of my decks, right? Because I'm with you guys philosophically, singleton, right? And I'm trying to make cuts. What's the easiest thing to cut? Demonic Tutor. But then you need to play more lands, and it doesn't work. Right?
Are you tutoring for land? Is that the issue?
How many lands
do
do you
not?
run, Richard?
Do you not? Like, I run 7 to 39, and I spend a non-zero amount of time tutoring lands. And even not the scuffed situation, you're tutoring a coffers.
Right.
Like, if Demonic Tutor said, choose a non-land card, put in your hand, trash. like all of a sudden the power gets like halved or something, right? Because a lot of times it is tutoring on turns 2 and 3 to make sure you get a land drop, or to put a draw engine up to make sure you hit the land drop next turn.
Yeah, get that
right?
one ring and
Like,
draw
never
cards or
dead
whatever.
card.
You kind
Never
of need
dead
it, right?
card.
So
I mean,
Mid to late game,
you're getting
Demonic
sweaty,
Tutor's
right?
so
You're getting
amazing.
sweaty. I agree with that, but
It's funny.
You need the sweat to make the jank work. Otherwise, you just got a bunch of terrible cards.
Like I don't run that many
you
demonic
draw
tutors.
the terrible cards as you would, depending on what the base shuffler wants to give you. I don't know. Again, there's no real discussion here to like, okay, is demonic tutor good? Sure, right? Yeah, but I just don't like tutors, and so I don't ever find it worth it. The only reason I've ever had a demonic tutor in my deck is my demon deck, because it's demonic. But now there's the cool demonic consultation, not demonic consultation, whatever the new demon tutor is that only gets demons.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I don't know.
Oh, that doesn't get lands though.
That's great.
This is why you're stuck at 3 and I made it to 4 lands.
You know what? But I'm stuck at 3 mana as, I don't know,
but
the shuffler and RNG intended it to be, right? Because I did not draw the right half of my deck.
You didn't sell a soul for it.
I will say, everyone always memes on me on tutoring for lands, but I'm like, what, you want to miss like 2 land drops and keep a tutor in hand? Like, what exactly are you casting with your no land drops, right?
You gotta
like,
do it.
Your deck scuffs you half the time, so you gotta tutor it out, right? It's like, what are you tutoring? Swamp. It's like not even anything good, right? Just a basic land. Let's go, right? Tomer, hit us with a card.
Okay, I have a card that I think is legitimately very, very good, but it is not $53 good, and that is the Great Henge. It's 9 mana, 7 double green, but it costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So if you have, it goes up to basically a discount of 7. If you have like a 7/7 on the battlefield, you could pay just 2 green to get it on the battlefield. Taps add double green, you gain 2 life. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. Card is amazing. If you are in a go tall deck, which a lot of green creature decks are, like if you could put like 5/5s on the battlefield, even 4/4s on the battlefield, I think the Great Henge is fantastic. Obviously, if you could cast it for double green very consistently in a go tall deck, that's the dream. But it does a bunch. It ramps you, it puts +1/+1 counters, gains you life. It does so many good things. But $53 is a heck of a lot. And I think green has been for a while now at a point where if you're a go tall deck that wants to run this card, you have a lot of options. If you just want to draw cards, which is I think the primary goal of this thingy, is you do like Rishkar's Expertise, you do Return the Wild Speaker, you do like the Soul's Majesty. There's like a bunch. There's a whole bunch. And if you want to be ramping, you got like Traverse the Outlands and you just vomit out like X amount of basics or whatever for 5 mana. You have so many ways of ramping and drawing cards and doing your thing and getting your engine going and go tall that like, yes, if you have an extra $53, then you could throw it on the Great Henge. But like you could spend your money and get so many other good cards that are almost, if not better, I would say. Like Rishkar's Expertise, I would actually take over the Great Henge, for example. And it's like not even, there's like a fraction of the cost, you know? So I think the Great Henge, a little bit too much for what you're getting.
But Tomer, everything that you just mentioned, if you put it onto one card, that makes it very hard to replace. And kind of almost like a staple.
It does
right?
it so slowly, though. Like Rishkar's Expertise is like, oh, you have an 8/8 on the battlefield? Draw 8 cards. Cast a spell for free. Yeah! And then this one is like, oh, okay. Well, now you get some mana every single turn. That's cool. You got a little bit of life every single turn. That's cool. And then you draw some cards slowly. That's cool. But like,
that is pretty
Rishkar's
cool,
Expertise
though.
is like, no. Boom. Bam. Eight cards in your hand, immediately refill, cast something for free, boom, 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 boom. And then you're like, it's like Phyrexian Arena versus like a good draw spell. I don't know.
Whoa, yeah, like Mind's Eye.
Yeah, Mind's Eye. Okay.
Wait a minute. So
I mean, it's burst versus incremental card draw.
Yeah.
Is what Tomer's saying, right?
And
the problem with this is you need to be set up for your
the Richard argument. No, you don't. Okay.
No, I mean, you have to have a big so for Phyrexian Arena, you just slap it down in turn 3 and call it a day, right? This is you need a big creature, then you play the Great Henge, then you draw cards, right? It's a little slow. I can see where Tomer's going, and I think I would agree. I think I could fill my deck with 4 or 5 high-quality green card draw spells, and I would not be sad that the Great Henge is on the sideline.
I mean,
having said that, if it was like a $20 card, I'd probably
yeah.
buy it. But like 50 is a lot, given that last March of the Ents, Rishkar's expertise, Return of the Wild Speaker, Garrick Primal Hunter. Like there's a million of these like draw a billion cards. How much is Toski? Toski's in here as well.
And last March also ramps, right? Like it vomits out all the creatures onto the battlefield too. Like, and Great Henge is only tapping for 2 each turn. So the amount of mana you would need to actually vomit out all the creatures.
The difference is this is the one that gains life.
Those
it's the Meathook Massacre of ramp spells.
Yeah.
Really
it is.
Really though.
So really good.
I mean, so the card is really good, but it's also very expensive. And I will say, I have found myself playing it less and less. If I went back to when this first released in Throne of Eldraine like 4 years ago, every single deck that had green in it, I was jamming this card. But then they started printing, we got the new season of growth or whatever the green season is. We got last March of the Ents. We got Rishkar's expertise, which came in the same set. So we've gotten all this burst card draw. So now I found that like I play it sometimes, but it's not like it used to be where one of the first cards I put in my green decks. So I would say, based on that and the fact that I'm playing it's less and its price has not gone down, I think I agree with Tomer. Not that it's a bad card, but I think I'm kind of like Richard. If this was like a $25 card, I think it would be worth it. But at $50, I'm kind of like, I can get by with my Rishkar's expertise and friends.
I think this is just there. No, like this is worth, just like Meathook, this is worth it. I think even if I just had a 3/3 and I had to pay 6 mana for this, I would be happy. I would be so happy.
I would pay like 8 mana for this thing. Oh yeah, double ramp, gain 2 life, draw.
Jeez, 8 mana.
Yeah, like I'm sorry, this card is. I hate green, but my God, this is like up there, right? Of the first like 5 cards I will put in a deck that has green in it. It's just so good. And the incremental card draw is actually, using the Richard argument, so like the whole it's so good it's bad. This goes, it's just so good that it's just good enough to not be bad. So like the incremental card draw, yes, people know Great Henge. It's a known thing. It's a known quantity. But regardless, it's just most of the time it's one card, as opposed to last March of the Ents. You've just drawn 30 cards or something like that. People don't like that. People see that you've just drawn 30. Okay, you gotta go.
No, what are you gonna do about it? It's an army on the battlefield, though. It's like, okay, last month.
Yeah, but you don't have the extra 2 mana.
Yeah,
no.
Right, it's not even like it's not even a draw spell last March. It's like it's a win condition, because it's like I drew all these cards and now I have a lethal army. What are you gonna do about it?
Plus,
but there's so many that will always be 8 mana, whereas there's more situations where you can get this for much cheaper than 8 or whatever 9.
Yeah.
So and it's not hard in said color green.
Yeah. So the closer parallel would be Guardian Project, which is like when you cast the spell that doesn't have the same name, which is like basically everything in Commander, you draw a card, right? This is not burst card draw, but it's not exactly Phyrexian Arena, right? Because if you can chain a bunch of creatures, you're drawing lots of spells.
Yep.
Guardian Project is like $8 or something, right? Like
that's another one I would say super overcosted. I think this card is actually trash.
Really? No
I think
way.
This card is bad. I think this card is actively bad. If you want this effect, just run Beast Whisperer. It actually synergizes with
Beast Whisperer is another one too.
Yeah, but your creature deck, run the creature one that has actual synergy with your deck, not this trash.
No, but if I'm running a creature deck, I want a non-creature. So once I get Wrath, there's at least something I have to rebuild my board with. I don't want to lose my
end away to farewell anyway. So what are you keeping, right?
You use the
effort. Oh no! Well, there's the top comment next week.
It all goes away. Who cares?
That's the emergency big red button. Farewell, Pam.
No, that's a valid point.
It's my turn. Okay, I got a spicy one, and I think Tomer will back me up on this one.
Ooh.
And I'm gonna go with the One Ring. It's a $70 card, right? It does a lot. Let me pull it up here. So Indestructible. It's an artifact. When it enters, you gain protection from everything until your next turn if you cast it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each bird encounter on the One Ring. Tap it, put a bird encounter on the One Ring, then draw a card for each bird encounter on the One Ring. Now, it's a $70 card, but I would argue that a lot of it is modern. This is like a high staple in modern. It seems good, but it is slow. It's like a very average card draw spell, in my opinion. There are many card draw spells in Magic the Gathering that outpace this, right? And what you're paying for is that one turn of immunity. And I don't know that it matters if you're actually just slapping it down on turn 4 and getting a turn of immunity and then just passing. But it draws 1 card. You untap, it draws 2 cards. You untap, it draws 3 cards. That's very slow. Like Tomer's Rishkar expertise example last March of the Ends. That's like draw 10, play all your crap, right? Trouble in Pairs draws like 4 cards a turn cycle or something, right? Rhystic Study draws 1 million cards. Mystic Remora draws 1 million cards. My favorite, Secret Rendezvous, 3 mana, draw 3, right? It takes you 2 turns of One Ring to catch up to that tempo, right? So it's actually kind of like, it's okay. There are a lot of colors I just simply do not run it because it's not the best card draw spell. Like white, blue, black, green, I feel don't need the One Ring. Like I can fill my deck with high quality card draw spells better than the One Ring. And it's red because red has mostly exile effects and stuff like that. Like you don't get the raw card draw in red in the same way, right? So like if you're a red mage, the One Ring could be worth it. But all the other colors, there's plenty of things that are just as good, arguably even better than the One Ring. So I don't think it's worth $70 whatsoever.
I agree with Richard mostly. I don't think it's worth $70, but I do think that if you put One Ring in any deck, like literally any deck, even like a white deck that has Trouble in Pairs and like all these what I would consider better draw sources, I still think the One Ring will make your deck better, just because the fog effect is really powerful, and also it's indestructible. So it's so annoying to deal with. Like, I think basically white can get rid of it, and that's it. Does Bane of Progress sacrifice? I don't even think.
No,
I think
Bane of Progress destroy.
it's so hard to get rid of. It's such an annoying card. So I think it's like it makes every single deck better. So maybe it's like investment wise, like no matter what deck you have, you can always like take your One Ring and put it in, and it will be better. In that sense, it's good. But I do think that I do agree with Richard that a lot of colors have better options for draw, at least. I don't know. Yeah. If it was like $50, I would say yes. I don't know.
Y'all are crazy.
I thought we agreed that the One Ring is slow.
Any deck better. It makes
It's so
literally any
slow.
deck better.
Wait,
I
okay,
only
Richard,
run it a single deck. I run it my culture deck. That's it. Only because the culture deck needs the help. But like, yeah, I don't run it out of principle. It's like Crim with Tutor. It's like, it's so good. It would make any of my decks better. Any of my decks, I would put it in. It would be better. And I don't run it because of that reason. I'm just like tired of this card.
how do you love Phyrexian Arena, Richard, but think the One Ring is too slow? Like, how? I don't understand, because they're very similar, right? Like, except One Ring's
You're right.
colorless, can go in every deck. Like, why would you play Phyrexian Arena in every deck and then be like, oh, One Ring's overrated? Like, I don't understand why the One Ring.
Phyrexian Arena is an above average card. If Phyrexian Arena was $70, I would not buy it. It is substitutable with a bunch of other card draw. And I play it because, like, why not, right? But if it was $70, I would not play Phyrexian Arena. It's just, I'm not Tomer where it's, like, trash. But it's not like, oh, my God, this is a reason to play black and it's the best card draw spell, in my deck, right? But I will say that about Rishkar's expertise. Last March of the Ends, Trouble in Pairs. Like, I actually need to play white somehow to jam in a Trouble in Pairs, right? I need to play white to get an Esper Sentinel in here. I need to get blue to get a Rhystic Study. No one says I need to play colorless to play the One Ring because it goes in every deck, right? But like, it doesn't have that same pull where I'm like, oh, I need to warp my colors because this card is insane. It's like an above average card, a very good card. But there are other very good cards in my colors that draw cards in the same manner. So that would be the argument. Not that it's like complete trash, but Phyrexian Arena or the One Ring.
Okay, so I can buy that it's not worth $70. I can buy that it's going to get banned in Modern, which is going to happen, and then its price is going to drop, and it's going to go down in value. It's going to get reprinted someday. It's going to go down. I can buy all that stuff. I can't buy, though, that it's not good. Like, the idea that the One Ring is just another card draw spell or worse than most of my card draw spells in my colors, that I just totally cannot get behind that argument, because I think it is like...
Toski or the One Ring? I can test you right now. Toski or the One Ring?
Well, in a deck built like birds to be a Toski deck, probably Toski. In a generic deck, One Ring 10 times out of 10.
Well, okay, but you can build your deck around most of this stuff, right? Like,
but the One
Last
Ring, you
March of
don't
the
have
Ends or
to.
the
That's
One
what
Ring?
makes... But, well, it also depends on the deck. But the power of the One Ring is...
The Great
in your
Henge or
bird
the One
deck,
Ring?
in your Great Henge deck, in your Last March of the Ants deck, you
Yeah.
can just throw the One Ring in, and it's going to make your deck even better. But you can't just
Yeah.
throw Toski into any deck and make any deck better, because some of the decks aren't going to have the things to support
yeah,
it.
you
Probably
can
the
put the
third or
One
fourth
Ring-
best card draw spell in any deck, right? Which is
Yeah.
probably enough to make the cut.
That's kind of
right?
where,
But-
yeah, I would
yeah.
agree
It
with
will
that,
show
yeah.
up in your
I can agree.
Toski deck. I guess maybe it is. Maybe okay. I've turned around. I think it's actually worth it because, like,
Oh, no.
if you disassemble your deck and you want to build a new one, what cards are you going to be left over with? Well, one of them is going to be the One Ring, right? Like you could just you could slide it into any deck. So I guess value wise, it is worth it. Even though I will not run it like out of principle.
Yeah.
But I have it in Cauldron. That's it. Only Cauldron.
I get your argument. I get it.
I actually. Okay, so like it is it's one of those effects that I think are really good, but at the end of the day, it is a card draw spell. So I actually agree with Richard. I don't think it's worth $70. To me, it's a card draw spell more than it is anything else. For $70, $70+, yeah, I don't think I would buy this.
Shocking. Crim has unlimited pockets. Price is no object
Unlimited
to him. I like it, Crim. Thank you, son. Thank you, son, for backing me
I
up.
got you, Dad. I got you.
All
It
right.
doesn't have life gain. It's actively life lost.
I mean, it does have
doesn't,
like the protection you gain from that turn is probably worth a ton of
Not
life,
enough.
right?
Not enough.
All right, Seth, hit us
Okay.
with a card.
Okay, I actually got a whole group of cards, and this blew my mind because I didn't even know that this is what these cards cost. But to research for this podcast episode, I was going through a list of just the Scryfall sorted by Commander legal cards most expensive, and I was going through this huge pile of like Gaia's Cradles and reserve list cards. Eventually, I finally got down to the the $50 cards, and I all of a sudden started seeing all these Universes Beyond secret lair drop cards popping up. The 14th Doctor, $54. Thumberchald, $41. Zenik, $40. Greymon, which was also Rick, $40. Lurcroft, $30. These cards are absurdly expensive, and most of them are not even like
my
that
boy.
powerful, really. Like they're they're okay, but these aren't Great Henges, One Rings, like super ridiculously overpowered cards. They're just kind of like medium legends that happen to have this uniqueness of being printed only as a secret lair drop, so hardly any of them exist. So I think these are I mean, I guess if you just love Lara Croft and what's going to make you happiest in life is having a Lara Croft commander deck or 14th Doctor commander deck, go for it. But I think these are like some of the worst cards to buy because Wizards has already promised, like straight up promised, we are going to print universes within versions of these cards. So we know we're going to get a reprint. And right now, the only reason these cards cost anything is because they're absurdly low surprise because they were secret lair drops. So I think secret lair legends are like the absolute worst thing that you can buy based on their price.
Greymon is the Universes Within Rick. That card is nuts. That card is nuts.
Look at my
That is
boy.
like the
Look
yeah,
at
like
my
some-
boy. Look how chunky he is. You're saying that's not worth it?
He
Look
is
at the
$41
plushie I
chunky, indeed. Yes.
I have the plushie with him.
that plushie and that card are probably both each $70.
That's my child. That's my child. and I
But
love
okay,
him.
but you bought the secret lair drop, right, Tomer? Would you go out and
Yes.
buy, like, if you were just a random commander player and not a Thumberchild fanboy, like, would you go out and buy this card for $40 to have in your collection? Where would you play it somewhere? Like, is this a card
I
that
run
a
in my-
normal person?
I run my Perforous
Got it down.
Dragons deck, but yeah, it's not like. Is it a replaceable card? No, because of Sember showed. But mechanically, is it replaceable? Yes.
What about?
it's so
Well,
cute, though.
I will agree that some of these are maybe mechanically replaceable, but I think that Greymon is very good. I think that is just a very good human.
That's
you have
Rick's
a human
steadfast
deck,
leader. If you're confused,
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
for,
magic
that's
version
that's
of Rick.
Rick. Yeah, the
Yeah.
magic within Universes Within Rick. I don't care which version you're
Card's
playing,
good.
but that card is the best human in the deck.
Yeah.
That card is so good.
Are you going to spend
Seth
$40
misses the
for
point
a
of this.
human, though? Just like,
Sorry, what was that?
are you really going to spend $40 just for another good human for your human deck? When you play like Sally's Lieutenant for
this
50
is not
cents,
another
like there's
human.
so many strong humans that exist that are like a bulk.
Ah, it's
No. This Seth, this is not like, like background guy 1. This is legitimately this is the human. This is the star of the deck, right? Like this is my hidden commander. If I'm playing
stack
human.
your deck shuffling. This is
This is what
It's
you're
in my-
stacking on the
it's in
deck.
my-
like you're looking for this card.
It's
You're
in my
looking for
changeling
this
deck
card.
too. Yeah, it's worth.
So if you ignore Rick for a second, all of these mechanically like suck, right? But you're missing the point. The point is
Richard!
I'm
What?
playing Lara Croft Tomb Raider, not generic. I don't know what this is. Legendary cards matter or whatever the hell. Doesn't matter what it is. I'm playing a Tomb Raider deck. You know, we talk about power level, we talk about worth it and overrated, underrated, right? But one thing that you're supposed to all know without us explicitly saying is you play what you like, right? Regardless of power level, whatever, right? It's a hobby. People want to play Lara Croft. They want to play the 14th Doctor. They want to play Dungeons and Dragons. It's the whole reason you built your deck. So I would argue that if you buy this, it's actually the most worth it. You're not buying some generic soulless staple. You are buying the thing that makes you happy. The whole point of your deck, which is this terrible Lara Croft card, right?
I don't think Lara Croft is bad. I play her in my loot deck.
I wanted to build her. She looks so bad.
So bad.
Well, I don't know about a commander, but she's good in the deck. But
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
Richard, I agree
that's
with
the
you.
whole point, right? That's the whole point of this hobby. So you're paying not for the mechanic, you're paying for the flavor and the universe is beyond.
But that
And I would
only-
argue that it's definitely
if we're
worth it.
going hashtag MTG Finance or whatever, it actually is probably better that you buy the secret layer, because that's only going to go up if because like they only are going to reprint the in-universe version, right? But how many times can they just go, all right, here's Lara Croft again, specifically, Themberchad or whatever again? Because it's not like that movie, the Dungeons and Dragons movie, is going to launch again. Definitely not after. Apparently it flopped, which sucks because I like
It's doing
the movie.
well on Netflix. All right, there's
yeah,
still a chance
like-
that we get a sequel. Come on.
Sure. I bought the Evil Dead one and I paid idiot tax on it because I didn't buy it when it launched. But despite Richard's beliefs, I do not have unlimited pockets. I was waiting. And so I was like, okay, I'll buy this later. So later I come back, it's $80. Okay. I was like, all right, well, that's way too much. This is inflated. I'll wait. Now it's $150. Okay. I'll wait. Definitely. Then I bought it for $200. So now I'm sad. So
The
Thanks.
problem I have with this argument though is, shouldn't it apply to other in-universe cards too? Shouldn't we be like, well, Avacyn's actually not overpriced at $40 because some people really love angels, and if angels are what make you happy, then it's worth $40 for you. So it's actually a good buy. And if some people
But
really
Avacyn
love
gets
cats, so
reprinted.
Ocelot Pride at $50.
Yes.
If you really
I-
love cats, we could
I
say
mean,
that about
yeah,
literally
but, like,
every
do
single
you
card.
really
And then
love
it's
the Great Henge? It's a little more of a stretch that that people buy Lara Croft Tomb Raider are buying it because they like Tomb Raider.
Is
Right?
Crimnog
Yeah,
correct,
But it
though?
applies to everything, right? We could say this card sucks and is a D or F, overrated, whatever. But if you like the card and it resonates with you, you 100% play it, and no one would, talk bad about it, right? Like, we have to rank things objectively, but obviously subjective trumps
Yeah.
objective, right? Like why do we play cards like this, right? This is just more expensive versions of more expensive cards, right? They're expensive cards, we paid even more for them, right? Because we like the art, we like the whatever, right? So I feel applying that to Universes Beyond doesn't work because you're buying the IP. Like when X-Men comes out, when Final Fantasy comes out, we're gonna pay through our nose for cards that suck, and we'll be happy about it.
So,
right?
just so it's clear too, this is an argument against Universes Beyond. It's about these exclusive, limited time only FOMO secret lair drops that feature
Special
cards
treatments.
that are secret. Like, I'm not arguing this about Lord of the Rings cards or any of that stuff. The Warhammer secret lair drop or Warhammer precon decks. So it's not like you shouldn't buy Universes Beyond commanders. Is that these ones that are only printed in a FOMO secret lair drop are very overpriced compared to even other Universes Beyond cards.
It's like saying you shouldn't
who's hugging
buy
Themberchad right now.
fracture foils.
Themberchad.
Say that to Thumbershow's face.
Yeah. I mean, that alone is actually why you should buy it, though. Like, right? Is it
I
not because
agree
like
with
these
Crim.
are FOMO-esque ones? So how else are they gonna get it out again? Right? without it being universes within versions worth nothing. Stranger Things cards worth absolutely nothing. Whatever the universes within versions are, I bought them. They're like under $1.
But doesn't that just depend on the
$1.
cards like quality though? Because Greymon's like $40, and that's a universes within. So it's just that most of those cards suck, so they're $1.
Wait, how much
That's
is
also
actual
fair.
Rick? Rick is the same price. They're about the same price.
Yeah.
I
Rick-
do agree that
Rick, I think, is the outlier because Rick is just so damn good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think Rick is so damn good.
It's
But-
like the One Ring. A lot of people just play it because it's good, not because like, oh my god, Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
right? But when you have a bad card that's expensive, then it's probably because of the treatment or the art or the flavor.
I think if we're talking criteria wise, like we're saying this card is not worth like power wise. The amount of power you get from your deck, if you put this card in, is not worth the price. And I think we were talking about that for a lot of the other cards. So I actually agree with Seth on that logic, but I also agree with Richard that like, I think that the price is justified just because of other factors is not power. So I agree with both those points.
Those factors might be better in the long run because cards will be power crept. But Laura Croft is Laura Croft.
Ember Show
But wait,
is
is there a new,
a
there's a
huge
new game
chonker.
coming out? Is
Yeah,
there a
but
new
what if they
secret
make
lair?
a bad Laura Croft that everyone dislikes? Your price might go
Well,
down.
that's the good
Grim.
news.
That's this
They
one.
have a lot of bad
That's this
ones.
one.
The
This
new
one
an-
sucks.
We've already gone through it.
What if Lara Croft gets canceled? That would be awful.
like,
All right,
Tesla.
Grim, hit us with the card.
Okay, so my next card is, well, you know what? We kind of touched upon it earlier. And I think Archangel of Avacyn, Angel of Hope, whatever the 8-drop one is from
Yeah.
Avacyn Restored that gives all your stuff indestructible. She's like, what, $40 nowadays, I think? Yeah, like she's $37, $40, somewhere around there. I don't think she's worth it because, okay, if you love angels, that's dope. That's great. But I don't think indestructible matters anymore. I don't. I
Use
really
the F
don't think.
word, Grim. Don't
No.
be afraid.
I think she
It's
dodged
too
a
fair.
lot.
It's too fair. Is that the F word? Because that's what I'm thinking of. It is way too fair. But yes, like farewell is it's in the name actually. Farewell. So Avacyn is just not what she once was, right? I mean, this card is still solid in some decks. Don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, if your angel deck wants an angel, that's cool. But this is an 8-mana card that is no different to me, really, than whatever that terrible artifact that they gave her. That's like all your legendaries are indestructible. It's like, that's great. Farewell, that's great. Cyclonic Rift, that's great. Like Toxic Deluge, like that's fine. That it's cool that she gives your permanents indestructible. So like she may be better in like this is my artifact deck, right? Okay, cool. Because if you're a creature-based deck, Avacyn is not where you want to go. Avacyn is not the card for you. But if you're like an artifact deck, maybe there it works. But even then, I can't justify $40 on this. This is just indestructible. That's all it is. It's weird to say that in the current year, but looking back at how good this like once was, but
No, this is. I think this card is. I think this card is not a good like generic staple. I think like you have to have a very specific home for it, like Kalia, for example. You want to cheat it out. It's a decent reanimator target. It's good in the angel deck. It's good in
be
like
honest
the
with you,
Kalia
I don't
deck.
think it's a good reanimator target.
Not a
If
good
I
idea.
would
Maybe if
rather-
you're limited
I
to
would rather
mono
you
white or
reanimate this.
something, but
But
yeah.
it's also flying vigilance 8/8. Like it also puts a serious clock on people. And I think like the farewell argument is like a little bit
Not farewell.
unfair. I don't
It's not
like I think the scariest thing for Avacyn is just like Source of Plowshares. Source of Plowshares deals
The
with it
most
very
commonly
easily.
played card in the
Yeah.
format.
But I think in our meta, I think Avacyn would actually be even better than a traditional table because we don't believe in Source of Plowshares, or some of us don't believe
I
in Source of
personally
Plowshares.
made sure of that because I did play Avacyn in some random meme deck
Yeah.
and nobody had an answer for it.
Yeah,
So,
it's scary.
but-
I don't know.
That's the time that Seth got back to Swords to Plowshares. Someone played it Avacyn,
Yeah, someone played
indestructible. He got mad and he got back. To
I
Swords
started
to
playing
Plowshares.
swords again.
Yeah. Well,
I-
it's $37 steep, but like I still think it's good. I still think it's
never-
a good card.
Like, okay, so I can see what Tomer's saying. If I'm building Cali or something, maybe it's worth splurging. Kind of like the Meathook Massacre, where like if I'm building Corvold, yeah, it's probably worth splurging, in my opinion, to get it even at $50. But I think in general, though, I don't play this card. Like, when was the last time any of you really realistically played an Avacyn? Like, anyone?
If it wasn't
in the last like
deck?
5 years? Like, anybody?
It's not a staple.
Yeah,
This
like,
not
used
even
to
close
be
to the
the
staple.
go-to.
It's the Angel deck card.
Yeah, the Angel
Yeah.
deck card.
So I think this is no different than Lara Croft. I think this is waifu tax, right? If you play Kalia, right, and you like Avacyn, you pay for Avacyn, right? But if you're like, oh, let's buy the top 100 white staples, like
Yeah.
Avacyn would not be
Not gonna be on
anywhere in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is like Lara Croft, right? Like
Yeah.
Avacyn is the big
That's
bad
fair.
angel. This is
That's
a style choice or an attachment point or something, right? And then you pay for it, which I think is perfectly justifiable. But you guys don't play this like it's a generic white card, right? Just-
No.
Yeah.
This
right? Yeah,
used
we
to
don't
be,
do that,
though,
right?
The end game.
It
This
used
would
to
be
seem
the big
like a
top-end
decade
spell,
ago. It
right?
did
Yeah.
be a lot more
Yeah.
play.
Yeah, it used to at some point, but even reanimation targets, this is kind of scuffed, right? Like you wouldn't really want to reanimate this either.
I would still reanimate it. I feel like you guys would sweat a lot. It would be like, oh, my generous
Yeah,
gift.
but we would
can't
sweat
deal
more
with
if you
it.
drew
Oh,
like 20
no.
cards off your reanimation target.
Yeah, like a Velgavoth or something.
Yeah.
Roxa. I will
Okay,
say, like,
fine.
this,
I'm gonna try it again then.
financially, they've reprinted this card a ton of times and it's still $40. So it's probably a pretty safe
Angels.
investment on that end just because people really love angels.
All right. All right, Tomer, bring us home with the last card.
Okay, I got one that yeah, I was surprised it was so expensive now. I remember it was like a $4 card. It's crept up to $18 now. And it's
Okay.
Drannith Magistrate, the Bane of Commander, anti-format card even. It's a 2-mana white, 1/3 human wizard. It says your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. So it shuts off anything like casting from exile. It shuts off like, I don't know, Underworld Breach, stuff that lets you cast from your graveyard. But for the format of Commander, it's most importantly shutting off casting your commander from the command zone. Because it stops that as well. So for 2 mana, you're shutting off and making everybody play Flare Magic, but also no casting your commanders. I think this card, even if it was like $1, I think it wouldn't be worth the price. I think this card is actually outside of CDH, where you want to save precious turns, like 1 or 2 turns, cat this on the battlefield, and then delay your opponent just like 1 or 2 turns so you can win the game before they can. I think this card's really good there. But outside of that, I think in casual Commander, this actually makes you lose the game more often than it will actually help you. Because the reason why is that you put this on the battlefield, you've pissed off everybody else at the table. And it doesn't matter what your logic is. Like, you could say, like, hey, you guys are we're all running like chill decks, like us, we are running chill decks, and somebody over there is playing like a Joda deck, or I don't know, like insert the scariest thing you can think of as a commander. And you can say, hey, look, this Drannith Magistrate is the hero. It's the Batman of the table because we're stopping the scary thing from just dominating us. But you could say that and you will be correct, kind of, because you can still cast your things, your commander, no matter. But the other two people, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they're playing. They could play like an 8-mana turtle fish garbage thing from Legends block that has no text on it whatsoever. It's like a vanilla 4/7 or something. They'll still be pissed off that they can't cast their commander. They will take it out, and what you've actually done is you've taken the heat away from the Joda player or whatever the scary archenemy commander is. You will be the punching bag. You will die. Your Drannith Magistrate will be removed, and then the archenemy will get to pop off and just like win immediately afterwards. So I think this card actually like lowers your chances of winning and actually benefits the person who you're trying to lock out of the game. And so $18, $1, it's not worth it. Take it out of your deck. That's my hot take.
I think that the card, unless you can actively like use it to like an advantage, like in my humans deck, I play it, right? Because it's still a human and it does what I want my opponents to do. Stumble while I'm trying to set up and get aggressive.
An aggro.
Outside of that, I think the card's bad. I think it's like just bad. It's just a 1/3. Who cares? Like this card, I've seen people go, all right, I've locked out the commanders. I'm like, okay, Great. I'm gonna just continue my game plan. Like it's just, I don't know. I just imagine the little fish in SpongeBob. It's like, get a load of this guy, you know, like, and then that's fine. That's it. That's all it is to me. It doesn't do anything actually to the board. And yeah, it draws you maybe hate. And I've definitely had Drannith Magistrates played on me, and I just let the player that has the Magistrate take the hate while I set up, slide under the radar, just do my thing. Oh no, I can't play my commander. I didn't need my commander. So
yeah, I don't even usually play my commander most of the time, and this card still will make me target you just on principle. So yeah, and I don't even care about my commander.
I agree with Tomer. I mean, I think you actively, so like the opposite of the One Ring argument, you actively make any deck worse by adding this into into your deck, because you just get heat, you're down a card, it really doesn't do much. It just annoys everyone. Either it does nothing and nobody cares, and then great, you played a 2-mana 1/3, or people care and they start murdering you. Like none of those situations work out well for you, right? So I'm surprised it's so expensive, right? CDH reasons,
gotta be
even CDH, I guess it stops breach. It stops like graveyard shenanigans, but you think you're playing white and you're playing Drannith Magistrate, and like it's like I don't even know. Did you guys put this in bracket 4? What bracket did this thing go into?
I think Wizards
Wizards put it in
Wizard
3.
explicitly put it in their demo thing at 3.
Oh wow.
In bracket
because
3.
it makes it's salt though. It's salt. I think if this weren't on the 3, I would actually put this in 2.
It's pretty annoying.
How's this worse or better than Thalia? Right? Like this is the same
I
thing.
mean, you literally can't cast your commander.
Yeah,
Moves.
let's just like hard lock your commander.
So, you there with your fierce guardianship and your temple play. You're like, oh my god, I'm like totally blown out by this, right? So
I don't think my fierce guardianship matters against the deck that's playing.
Thalia makes your fierce cost 1 mana when your commander's out. That's not free.
But wait, what if the commander is Rick Steadfast Leader?
Yo, that's
Whoa,
okay, then I play. Then I play it.
That's why it's good in humans.
Yeah, I can see it in humans, actually. I wouldn't mind that.
All right. So those are the cards that we have chosen to help save our wallets by cutting them out of our decks. Let us know if we've missed any. Let us know what your opinion is on some of these cards. We had actually everyone was controversial. Except maybe Fierce Guardianship, where you guys just all agreed. But Great Henge, like, what do you guys think? Meathook Massacre, Rick Steadfast Leader is an interesting card. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you all back here next week.